The year is 2026 and the Vishwa Guru fantasy isn't just crumbling, it's being sold for scrap. By the very people who built the pedestal. For years, New Delhi convinced the world they were the ultimate bridge between the East and the West. But Operation Sindoor in May 2025 didn't just burn that bridge, it exposed that the foundation was made of cardboard and PR slogans. When the reality of drone swarms and electronic warfare hit the fan during those 4 days in May, look at the receipts from the conflict that the Indian media tried so hard to bury. This wasn't a surgical masterstroke, it was a humiliation captured in 4K that forced the nationalist ecosystem to eat its own words. By May 10, the narrative of total dominance had completely collapsed, and you had prominent Indian defense analysts and OSINT YouTubers sitting in their studios with ashen faces, forced to admit the truth. They conceded live on air that Pakistan was outclassing them. They had to acknowledge that Pakistan had real, functional support, electronic warfare umbrellas and satellite-linked drone coordination that rendered India's expensive non-contact weapons useless. Even the arrest of figures like Jyoti Malhotra for allegedly spying for Pakistan only highlighted the paranoia. They couldn't believe their own military was being outperformed, so they had to blame internal betrayals and foreign support that their own analysts admitted was superior. Now let's talk about the Russia thing in detail. In April 2026, India is trapped in a geopolitical comedy of its own making. They claim to be Moscow's all-weather friend, but that friendship is currently being paid for in a mountain of useless rupees that Russia literally cannot spend. New Delhi is funneling billions into Russian oil to keep their own inflation from exploding, but they're doing it with a trembling hand, constantly looking over their shoulder at Washington. The desperation for US sanctions waivers has turned the Vishwa Guru into a beggar at the gates of the White House. They claim they don't need permission to trade, yet they're terrified of losing the 25% tariff breaks the Trump administration dangled in front of them. The absolute failure of the Su-57 project and the recent disasters in their joint manufacturing ventures have proven that Russian hardware is no longer the shield it used to be for the Indian military. While Pakistan builds kinetic, high-tech partnerships with China and Turkey that actually function in a war zone, India is trying to buy 40-year-old jet engine technology from the US while pretending to be Russia's best friend. It's not balancing, it's a death spiral of unreliability. The hypocrisy is even more nauseating when you look at the China-India trade dynamic. New Delhi loves to perform for the cameras, banning a few apps and chest-thumping about self-reliance. But the 2026 data is a slap in the face. India's trade deficit with China has hit a record-breaking, humiliating peak. While they tell their citizens to boycott Chinese goods, their own military-industrial complex is literally gasping for air without Chinese raw materials and microchips. You aren't a rival to a country when you're their most addicted customer. You're just a disgruntled subordinate waiting for your next shipment. They bark at Beijing and then beg at the back door. In the end, Operation Sindoor was the final funeral for the Indian superpower myth. It proved that in a real crisis, India is an island, too arrogant to stick with the East and too unreliable to be trusted by the West. They are a country that tries to play every side and ends up with no side at all. While Pakistan has spent the last year solidifying a bloc that actually provides security and technology, India is standing alone, wondering why nobody is answering the phone. The lone elephant of the global South is just a giant with clay feet standing in a spotlight that's about to be turned off. The mask is gone, the receipts are public, and the world is finally seeing the truth. India isn't leading anyone, they're just running out of people to lie to. This was Operation Sindoor, not a victory, but the end of a very expensive delusion.